Sorry, you're an Arsenal fan. You've got to talk Arsenal, obviously.
Do we have to?
Might as well, right? Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. And look, me and you've been speaking about him for a while, for probably about a year, when his form started to kind of tail off a bit. He's now left the club. And I was okay with it. I'm not an Arsenal fan. But then I started seeing clips of him. The smiling, the joking, all the goals he scored when he was at his peak. And it is quite sad to see it kind of just happen the way it's happened now.
Yeah, of course, there's an element of sadness to it, because whenever somebody gives you so much joy as a football fan, you're always sad to see them go. But I think this is what had to happen, Ade. You know, unfortunately, there were issues behind the scenes that we don't really know about. And this is the difficulty in a situation like this, because there's a part of you that feels like, well, maybe we could have done more. Maybe Mikel Arteta could have done more to keep hold of the player. And the other part of you thinks, well, I don't really know the full story, so I'm going to reserve that really harsh judgment either way. But it's sad, it's disappointing, it's frustrating. I think this is more of an issue because of our inability to bring someone in to replace him.
Yeah.
I think that is the big problem here. I think had we brought a striker in during this window, I don't think you'd hear half as much noise about Aubameyang, because let's be honest, he hasn't been up to standard for a while now.
Yeah.
It's clear that the team has evolved tactically away from him and his style, and we're not getting the best out of him anyway. So I think that's what it is. The fact that we didn't get someone in has obviously made this story a bigger one than it probably should have been.
Yeah, some people will argue, and I tend to agree with these as well. Like Mikel Arteta's come in, and he's obviously clearly a manager that likes to enforce and crack the whip, and that's fine, because I think Arsenal need that. But surely one of your managerial skills should be to get the best out of what you would say at the time is Arsenal's genuine world-class player. There's players that I think will become world-class. I think Saka's going to do that. I think Emil Smith-Rowe and others. But people would say that that's the world-class player, that's the captain. How can Arteta not get the best out of him?
It should be, it should be something that a manager looks to do. And I think in the past we've seen a lot of managers do that. I think, Sir Alex Ferguson managed situations very well. I think Arsene Wenger managed situations very, very well in the past, where maybe all wasn't well behind the scenes. But I think with Aubameyang,
this is two players now as well. This is Ozil, big money, superstar, world-class player, and this is two now. It
is, but you can't put all of the blame on Mikel Arteta. You've got to understand exactly what was going on. And unfortunately, from our position, it's difficult to do that.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the first thing is they're not Arteta's players, right? He didn't bring either of those two players to the club. And if it happens with players that he did bring to the club further down the line, then I think there's more of a case to be answered. But I think sometimes, as a manager, letting somebody get off with something, especially if it's something they've done on multiple occasions, can actually undermine you in the eyes of the rest of the dressing room. And I know when Aubameyang left, there was a lot of the current squad that took to Instagram and sort of thanked Aubameyang and wished him well. The relationship clearly there wasn't fractured, but the manager's got a job to do. And I think he's, first of all, taken into consideration these discrepancies, but then he's also looked at the fact that he's not playing all that well. He's a huge resource drain. And whether we like it or not, he's come to that decision and they've moved him on. Yeah,
he has. We'll talk about Aubameyang a bit later. We're going to hear from him as well. Spoke to the press at his unveiling as a Barcelona manager. Sorry, Barcelona player. We'll talk about that. Frank Lampard, new Everton manager. Shocked? Surprised by it?
A little bit surprised, but it feels like the kind of job that Frank Lampard should have gone into when he left Derby. I think he sort of skipped a step, didn't he, by going to Chelsea. Did a decent job there for a period of time, the first season in particular. But it was clear in the second season that he was out of his depth and he subsequently lost his job. I think he could do well there. I think Everton's a club with huge potential. But for me, Ade, the problems at Everton are much bigger than the manager.
I don't even know what doing well at Everton is anymore. There was a time 10 years ago where I would have said doing well was Everton being a top 6, top 8 club. This is a team now that are 16th, I think, in the Premier League. Like, what is doing well? It's top 10 doing well for Everton? I don't know if that's it.
I think a club of their size should be trying or aspiring to get into the top 6. I know it's not easy because you've got the big 6, if you like. And, sometimes one of them is not up to standard and people fall out of that. But I think for Everton, they've got to be in and around that conversation. And it's a bit of a cycle with Everton, right? It's new manager, go in the summer, buy a load of players that on paper look pretty good, spend a fair amount of money, expect them to push on. They start the season brilliantly, they always do, and then the rot kicks in again.
Always like that, isn't it?
Over and over again.
It literally continues like that, where the manager comes in, like Carlo Ancelotti's the big one, came in, everyone was excited. I was even excited for Everton as a Liverpool fan. I was like, geez, they might do something here, and then gone. Carlo Ancelotti spends a lot of money, and that's the worst thing. He gets a lot of money to spend, and then he goes. Frank hasn't had money to spend, but he's brought in a couple of high-profile loans in Donny van der Beek and Dele Alli. Again, we're rolling the dice here because I don't see anything of those two that shows they can do anything in the Premier League now. But if it works, it could really work.
What they deserve praise for, though, is recognising that the tried and tested approach, i.e. the old school Carlo Ancelotti, Rafa Benitez, as experienced and as good as they are, that hasn't worked for Everton. So at least they haven't gone down that route again. You know, Lampard may or may not work, but at least they've moved away from just going for what they perceive to be experience and ignoring maybe what's the actual issues. And I just hope they give him time to build, because they don't seem to want to do that.
You know what scares me about Everton? And look, me and you are an age when Everton are a big club, moving to a big ground, fantastic fan base. How did it get to the stage where your final three candidates for that job, and it pays well, Farhad Moshiri pays well, how are your final three candidates and all the managers in Europe, Duncan Ferguson, Vitor Pereira and Frank Lampard? Is there no more managers in the world? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, I completely agree, but it's one of those situations where managers will be looking at the job and going, I'm not sure about this one. You know, I'm not sure that the environment is right for me to succeed. And I think that plays a big part. I think we see that at a lot of clubs where, you know, they go out, they really stick their necks out, they bring in perceived to be top managers. They come in, the environment's not quite right, it doesn't work out. And then there comes a point where people are looking on and going, well, if Carlo Ancelotti couldn't get it right and Rafa Benitez couldn't get it right, then what chance do I stand? And I've got to watch my own back and I've got to look after my own career. And I think that's the case at Everton, and that's probably why the candidates weren't of the standard we'd expect.
Yeah, indeed. Let's switch to Manchester United for a couple of minutes. Manchester United play Middlesbrough in the FA Cup this weekend. Edinson Cavani and Jesse Lingard have asked for time off. I can understand the Cavani one. He's been playing in South America with Uruguay. Jesse Lingard hasn't. And look, the thing about this, which I guess has annoyed some United fans, is that Jesse Lingard has been, you know, begging for an opportunity, vying for an opportunity. You're going to get one, because he probably would have started against Middlesbrough. He wants some time off. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with Jesse. Surely this isn't the game you asked for off. If you're Jesse and you want to prove something. Yeah,
you would have thought that this would be a good opportunity for him to be in the side, you know, really show his worth and almost prove Ralf Rangnick and those who have come before him wrong. But ultimately, I think that there's been a big issue between Lingard and the club. I think he was desperate to get out on transfer deadline day. We all know what the events were that have led to Manchester United having to hold on to him. But he'll feel hard done by, won't he? He'll feel that that's out of his control. It's nothing to do with him. And he'll probably feel a bit like he's being punished for someone else's misdemeanour. So I get it, but you're right. I think this is the kind of fixture in which Lingard would get an opportunity and could potentially prove his manager wrong.
Indeed. AFCON semi-final, the final one today, Cameroon versus Egypt. Big game, this one. Big game. Obviously, look, I'm a Liverpool guy, so fingers crossed Mo Salah comes through it unscathed. You've been watching the AFCON. You've been doing some commentary duty, right, for the AFCON as well?
Yeah, right? I have. I did a couple of group stage games and I did one of the round of 16 games. Yeah, so it's been a good tournament. Lots of it. What I find so interesting about AFCON is we get to see so many players that we don't get to see on a regular basis. But it's hotting up now. Obviously, Cameroon and Egypt has got a bit of added spice after some criticism towards Mo Salah from some of the Cameroon players. So that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it should be interesting as well. Obviously, Senegal are through. Sadio Mane scoring, looking good. So we're potentially on course here for a Mane Salah showdown in the final, which is going to be great. That's kind of, look, I know Cameroon are the host nation, but really the TV world would love to see Sadio Mane versus Mo Salah.
Yeah, absolutely, and what a game it would be. And you know, it's another side story to what's already going to be an excellent game. But yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, you're a Liverpool man.
What have you made of the standard of AFCON? I'll be honest. Has it been good? Like, obviously, look, people laugh at the refereeing standards because what happened with the time being cut short in one of the games. Some of the challenges, people always used to talk about the goalkeeping in Africa, which I think has actually gone a lot better. Be honest, what's the standard been like?
I don't think the standard's been great, if I'm being completely honest. But I think that comes from having a lot of countries participating in it that don't have the infrastructure necessarily to be able to develop.
Comoros.
Exactly. To be able to develop at the same rate as others do. I think what really frustrates me about the AFCON is there's obviously lots of talent there. You only have to look at how many of those players play for top clubs. But I keep hearing from FIFA and everybody else, you know, it needs more respect, it needs more love. You could quite easily give it more respect and more love by, first of all, improving some of the coverage around it, by giving sort of finance to allow that to happen, improving some of the playing surfaces. Obviously, the weather provides some challenges there, but you could do better. Training up the referees, bringing them up to a level that we've seen during the tournament. They're not.
Some of the level of refereeing in the tournament has been really bad. But I think one of the big things as well was that a lot of these players have literally jumped off a plane from playing in the Premier League and got their first game. When you think in the Euros, you play a couple of friendlies. There's like, you know, the squad have like big 2 to 3 weeks at least to kind of climatise with each other. It's like, no, off a plane and then bang into a game. So I think if AFCON wants respect, it almost has to clean up a few of the issues.
Yeah, and you've also got to remember, so many of these teams have gone into AFCON with COVID issues and they've been disrupted in that sense as well.
What game was it? Was it Comoros who didn't have a goalkeeper?
Yeah.
And they used their left back or something?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's bad.
Come on. That's crazy. And that would never happen. It wouldn't even be allowed to happen in the Euros or the Copa America. So yeah, they do need to improve AFCON to take AFCON a lot more seriously. All right, you're listening to The Social here on talkSPORT 2, myself, Ade Oladipo, the voice